You're still human at the end of
You're
the
still
day.
human at the end of the day, and I wish people would understand that this isn't just about entertaining you as a fan, but they're playing this game and they're playing the sport because they love it, not just to entertain you. And I feel like people forget that this isn't a movie, this isn't like for play, like it's serious when
Right,
you
right.
step in between those lines.
Hey y'all, it's Adrielle. Welcome back to another episode of DEI in 5, the series where we explore bite-sized discussions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Today we're going to be diving into the world of sports. And I want to talk more specifically about the double standard that is faced by Black athletes. I have a special guest today joining us, who I'll introduce in a moment, to share their perspective on and insights on college athletes, or athletics rather. But before we get into that, I just want to take a closer look at an incident in the NCAA women's basketball tournament that has sparked this very conversation today. So this past Sunday, I think it was April 2nd? I don't even know what day it is today, but hey, here we are. But this past Sunday, Louisiana State University, LSU's Division I women's basketball team won their very first NCAA championship against the University of Iowa with a final score of 102-85, which I'll say is the highest scoring NCAA women's title game ever. And so shout out to them. But in the final moments of this game, LSU's Angel Reese, who was also named Most Outstanding Player of the Final Four, waved her hand in front of her face in the direction of Iowa's Caitlin Clark and pointed at her ring finger to say, basically, you can't see me. The moment went viral fast. Folks were criticizing her for taunting Clark in what they considered an unsportsmanlike way. Somebody even called her classless. And so if you've been following women's college basketball, you know that Clark, who's also a really incredible player on the Iowa team, she was named Player of the Year. She also finished the tournament with 191 points, which is more than any player has ever scored in an NCAA tournament, male or female. But if you've been following, you would have seen that 2 games ago, she also used the "you can't see me" gesture herself, but was met with no criticism whatsoever. Even the famous wrestler, John Cena, who we all know was famous for saying "you can't see me" throughout his career, hyped her up on Twitter, and no one said anything negative. But then Angel Reese repeated the same thing back, essentially parroting her behavior, and the reaction brought to light this double standard that often impacts Black athletes. So today we're going to explore some issues, ask some critical questions. Historically, like I said, there's been this impossible double standard when it comes to Black athletes being held to different expectations. So what's going on here? Like, what is it? What is this inherent bias that we still see in terms of how Black athletes are being perceived? Why is it that when a Black athlete like Angel Reese uses the same exact gesture as her white counterpart, that she's subjected to scrutiny and negative labels? To help us understand this more, I have my brother here today, Parker, who is going to just kind of break down some of what's going on, some of what we're seeing. My brother, Parker Chatman, he is a student athlete, more specifically a Black student athlete that plays college basketball at the NAIA level. Formerly, he was at the NCAA level. He's also majoring in general psychology with an interest in sports psychology. So I thought he would be able to bring a really dope perspective to our conversation today. So, Parker, tell me what you think in terms of what's your perspective of what happened with Angel Reese? What are your general thoughts about that whole NCAA debacle?
Well, I think, well, to start off with, just doesn't happen in basketball. It happens in all sports. I mean, we've seen it from time to time again with certain athletes, legendary athletes, Dennis Rodman, Charles Barkley, like guys that are outspoken and they do things a lot differently than other athletes. If you know basketball and you know about Dennis Rodman, the NBA at one point said that if he didn't show his tattoos and if he didn't express himself and do everything with the hair, if he didn't stop, that they would remove him from the NBA and then he wouldn't be in contract or he wouldn't be playing.
I remember that.
So, yeah. I mean, I feel like the higher you get in level of the sport that you play, the more media is going to look at you. The more success you have, the more the media is going to look at you, especially for Black athletes. I feel like the LSU team, they were a really good team, but and sometimes they were looked at as like an underdog. A lot of people didn't think that they were going to beat Caitlin Clark in Iowa. Um,
Right.
I think that it's just the natural. It's like a natural habit almost. We can look back like in the '90s and say the same thing about the Duke basketball, a very prestigious school. Majority of the players at the time were white. They were really good academically and athletically. But then when you look at Fab Five, you get this negative connotation when you look at Fab Five, like just a bunch of guys from Detroit or the Detroit area that played on that team. But one day they did beat Duke, and one day that they did win a national championship. So they're looked at differently upon, like, when it comes to NCAA or any collegiate sport, they're looked upon as a negative, negative pass. Me personally,
So it's almost like you have to prove yourself.
yeah, you do have to prove yourself. And it's hard. I know what she's going through, because sometimes you have certain coaches or certain people telling you not to do this or not to do that, or be more formal, how you speak and how you act on the court. I'm just blessed enough to have a coach, and I'm blessed enough to be around guys that accept me for who I am, because I feel like I'm a person that that's a free spirit, and I do use my my words and my actions to express how I feel, like, on the court. So I'm very blessed to have that chance to do that, like playing basketball. It's just
Right.
I feel like if my team and my success on the court these upcoming years, I feel like a lot of people will probably say the same thing, like, oh, he's hood, or oh, he's a thug, just because the way we act, you know. I feel like people take the word free speech and they run with it, and they sometimes abuse that power, because I feel like the same thing that happened with this young African American woman in the basketball game, I feel like it's okay. But when they seen Caitlin Clark doing it, they just took that piece and that image and said, oh, she's just a dog, and oh, she's just a go-getter, a killer. Like, that's what they like to see. But they don't like to see what leads up to that. Like, I feel like there was a game before the national championship. They were playing Louisville, and her and Haley Van Lith got into it, and that's why Caitlin Clark did the "You Can't See Me."
Oh, right.
But media didn't cover that part. They only covered Caitlin Clark doing this, "You Can't See Me."
Right.
So media likes to pick and choose what they want to add, which is, to me, I feel like that's sad, because when we're talking about race, they always want to choose the negative outlook and the negative part for Black athletes and use it against them. You know what I'm saying? Like, same thing with there was an incident with the Golden State Warriors where Draymond got into an altercation with a teammate, and he ended up hitting him. Well, why did that film get leaked on national television? Why is that on social media for people to see? Draymond Green is a person that talks about his emotions, and he doesn't care what other people think, and people don't like that, and people don't know, they don't like how he plays, but it has led to his success over these years. You can hate him all you want, but he has multiple championships at the college level and at the professional level, but they still want to paint him as a bad person, and I just don't think that's right.
Yeah. And it's almost like, you know, they want you to separate your identity. Like, you're just supposed to be this prim and proper athlete, but remove who you are as a person and your background and your culture, and suppress that and not just be yourself. What kind of impact do you think that has? And just kind of like bridging the gap with, you know, or connecting to you studying psychology too, but what kind of impact do you think, and have you experienced that having on athletes when you are, you know, dealing with coaches, and not just coaches, but other players, media, and whoever else that is looking at you like they were doing Angel Reese, like, oh, she's ghetto, or she's this or that?
Well, I feel like I've been in that situation. All Black athletes are in that situation. They're looked at already negative, because one, where they're from, and two, the color of their skin, but also if they're not scared to bite their tongue. Like a lot of
Right.
people dislike, I wouldn't say hate, but they dislike when athletes talk about politics or talk about other things that are happening in the world on
Right.
top of the sport that they play. So me personally, when people hear that I'm from Toledo, Ohio, they kind of like have this negative thought in their head, or they might make this face like, oh, he's from Toledo, Ohio, I don't know how I feel about that, or oh, he's from Detroit, I don't know how I feel about that. So he's going to already come off as a little rough, a little aggressive as a person, and that might
Right.
not be the
People make
case.
assumptions.
Right. So
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like certain athletes, they have to, it's a must for them to establish their narrative and establish their character very, very, very soon. Especially for
Yeah.
an athlete like that. She's from Baltimore, Maryland. So everybody has a certain stereotype
Yep.
about people from Baltimore. I've had teammates from Baltimore. Even I had a stereotype about, people from Baltimore. Like they're either loud, they're aggressive, sometimes they're mean. But like you can't say that because you don't know them and you don't know how they play. So
Right. We have to look at people as individuals at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Knowing that we can't really control what the media is doing and what they're going to put out and what people are going to post on social media, what can viewers and fans do that, see this stuff happen? What can they do to start to support athletes and create a more inclusive and equitable environment in sports so that this isn't weighing heavily on athletes and y'all can actually just focus on what you do and what you're good at?
Well, one, I feel like fans, I don't want to sound like pissy or mean or anything, but I want, like, the one thing I want to say is fans need to stay fans, and they need to be understanding of where these athletes are coming from, the time that they put into. Honestly, a girl like that, she just won a national championship at the Division I level in college basketball. First off, we're talking about girls college basketball, which already doesn't get a lot of women's college basketball, which already doesn't get a lot of screen time, and they do not get that much money when it comes to NIL. I'm assuming, and especially with the professionals, they don't get that much money. A lot of women,
not at all.
Yeah, a lot of women, they don't only just play in the WNBA, but they also play overseas when it's their off season. So
yeah,
I mean, it's a positive that the women are getting this media and they're getting a chance to be on this platform, but I also kind of feel bitter because they're getting all of this attention, but for negative reasons. So
it's like overshadowing the wins that they had.
And I wish people could be more understanding of the time and effort that these women put basketball first, and they're not allowed to go home during the year. It's just basketball. It's the Division I level. Like, they're getting paid. I mean, they're going to school for free, but they still have a job. So of course they're going to put their emotions into it. Of course they're going to express how they feel. She just won a national championship. Caitlin Clark had 41 points in a tournament game, a big tournament game.
Yeah.
So of course she's going to do the gestures. That's the natural habit, and that's the beauty of the sport. You can't sit there and say things and think these athletes don't have feelings or they don't see it. They're just kids as well. Like, if I hit a big time three and I said something to the crowd, and then the next morning I see all of this stuff going on social media, oh, he's a thug, oh, he's this, oh, he's that, I'm going to feel some type of way.
You're still human at the end of the day.
You're still human at the end of the day, and I wish people would understand that this isn't just about entertaining you as a fan, but they're playing this game and they're playing the sport because they love it, not just to entertain you. And I feel like people forget that this isn't a movie. This isn't like for play. Like, it's serious when you step in between those lines. That's with anything. I was actually watching a interview with Kyrie Irving, and Kyrie Irving was also saying that people forget that these athletes are human, and this is a job. This is their livelihood. Like, they live for this. They sleep, they eat, they breathe. They lose countless hours every day with their family. They're away from their family. They travel every day. So I, I feel like fans need to be mindful and they need to
Hmm.
respect these athletes' boundaries. They don't know what they're going through. So
Right, right. Definitely. Um, the last thing I'll ask you is, are there, before we kind of wrap up here, like, are there any things that you can think of that would really help to start to break down some of these double standards that Black athletes are facing? And are there ways that we could better celebrate Black athletes for their talent and achievements, or just athletes in general, regardless of their backgrounds?
I do believe, well, I don't like to think this, but in America, I feel like in the African American community, we tear down Black athletes and Black entertainers more than we uplift them. We
Mm,
like to throw them under the bus and we like to tear them down, which I hate to say,
hmm.
but it is true at the end of the day. And I feel like
Hmm.
we deny it every time it is said. Oh, that Black people
Right.
throw other Black people under the bus. Oh no, we don't. We want to uplift. Well, that's not
That
true. It
happens.
happens.
You go on Twitter, it happens every day.
Yeah, like there's shade thrown every day, and I think the one thing that we can do for these Black athletes and for a
Hmm.
lot of athletes in general that are going through this is we need to give them their flowers by uplifting them, by
Yeah.
promoting what they're doing,
Hmm.
by posting positives about them. Because at the end of the day, it's not easy being an athlete. Um,
Right.
I mean, it is fun to watch, but you also have to have some type of sympathy for the athlete themselves,
Hmm.
the sacrifices that they make, even the ones that are not playing, the ones that are sitting on the
Yeah.
bench, the ones that were riding the bench. Those women are champions too.
Hmm.
And I think that both sides that fans should just look at this and be like, they gave everything they got. Both women did and both teams did, and
Yeah.
we should praise them and give them their flowers at the end of the day, because a lot of those young ladies, they might not end up playing professionally, or they might end up playing professionally, but their career
Right.
might not go as planned, because at the end of the day, it is also women's basketball. And I hate to say that, but
Hmm.
it's sad, but women's basketball doesn't get paid as much as men's. You know what I'm saying? Like a
Right.
lot of
And
women's
people
sports.
aren't interested in watching it as much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I am happy that women's college basketball did end on a positive note. It was sold out. I remember like the game was sold out. The women's game was sold out.
Yeah. Yeah. They had like 19,000 fans or
And
something
yeah,
wild
like
like that.
to get tickets,
Yeah.
it was like up in the 200s or $185 to get seats. So that
Yeah.
is, I like to see that, because probably 5-10 years ago, like they weren't selling seats and tickets like that, and it wasn't sold out. So
Right.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy that it's going in the right direction.
So there's some progress. It's just slow.
It is slow. Yeah.
Um, yeah. The last thing I'll ask you, I know that was going to be the last thing, but I don't know if you heard about, I think it was First Lady, oh my gosh, Jill Biden, that invited both teams to the White House.
Mm.
And I think, to my knowledge, usually don't they just invite the winning teams?
They do only just invite the winning teams. It's usually
So that's
it's usually
interesting.
the national champion that gets invited. That's with
Hmm.
any sport. That's with on any level. NBA, Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's it. So
Hmm.
I think that was. I mean, once again, I can see why maybe the reason why she did that, but I think that it is also, it's kind of odd that the LSU team has to share that spotlight still with Iowa,
Right.
but also
And again, for a negative reason.
right. Yeah, and once again, the media is going to look at that and they're going to try to make some type of negative connotation about it, or maybe the coaches are going to end up having Caitlin Clark and the young African American lady end up shaking hands or something. Like there's going to be something to show
Hmm.
that everything is okay. But
Yeah.
media wants to make it and they want to paint this picture that, oh, they hate each other. Oh, this is no, these are two athletes that were competing at a very, very high level, almost at a professional
Right.
level. It's not
Right.
about,
Right.
it's more than emotions into this is a sport and this is a game. That's why fans need to understand that. Like, you can't just sit on a screen or sit behind a screen and talk about the
Hmm.
sport. I feel like you have to be
Right.
there, or you have to be able to understand what's it like to compete at a high level like that.
Well, I appreciate you breaking it down for us and sharing your experiences. I think it's always good to hear from people that are actually in it, because I think a lot of people are talking about it. To your point, they're online talking about it. They're on Twitter with opinions, thoughts, etc. But none of them are actually playing college sports, and none of them have ever played college sports. And a lot of them certainly haven't been Black college athletes at that. So appreciate you sharing that with us today, Parker. For y'all watching, let us know what you think about this whole situation in the comments. What are some ways that we could better support athletes? What are some ways that media could be sharing or showcasing Black athletes, especially in a better light? And of course, make sure you like this video, subscribe, share it with other people, and I will see you back here for another episode of DEI in 5. Thanks for joining us. Until later. Bye.